Okay, so that's that back on. But as a result of these spacers, you can quite clearly see there's a gap there now. So it's doing its job, right? It's protecting and making safe that belt and the workings in there. But there's plenty of room for the sawdust to come out. Nothing's going to rub and nothing's going to get hot. So that's the problem with the top head resolved. The side head here, we've tightened up these bolts and we've made sure that the bearings are good. This one is okay. This bottom head, once I took that block out, it was making a lot of noise. And these are sealed bearings. Much to my better belief, I've squirted a little bit of WD-40 in both sides of that, and that's quietened it down. So we'll see what happens. Now, I couldn't find the belt for that other side, but I've used a squirter belt slip, and what that'll do is it'll work its way round and it will stop the squealing on start-up. And I think now there's nothing in there, we're safe enough to do this test with the top open, so we can see what's going on. Make sure there's nothing going to fly off and kill us or otherwise hurt us. Nope. So what we're going to do, that there, in there, that's the safety switch. So I think we're good to start up. We'll do it in order. Left. Right. Back. Lower. Oh, we slipped off the... I slipped off the safety switch. Okay, so not only is there no noises, there's no grinding, there's no rattling, there's no vibration. Otherwise, everything would have just vibrated off. That's good. That's 100% improvement on where we were. But also the length of time that these run when you switch it off. So when I first switched this bottom roller on, not only was it making a horrible noise, the instant you powered it off, it would stop. That's not good. And the same with this one. The side ones have got no weight on them, so they're going to stop quite quickly, but this kept rotating. That's good. Now, there's two things I've just noticed. The most importantly, how fast this is running. Right? This is the feed. This is what pushes the wood through. It's running way, way, way too fast. Now, I'm assuming, assumption being the mother or father of all, I don't know what that is. I'm hoping that speeds it up or slows it down. That's what I'm hoping, because that's what we need, because it's running way too fast. So the only way to determine that, now we're really going to have trouble doing this with not enough hands. We're not going to run any of the blocks, so we should be all right with just jamming the screwdriver in underneath the safety switch. Like that. And then we want feed on only. Right, we want to slow this right down. Look at the speed that's going. We ain't in a rush. Hey, look at that. That's better. Yep. Okay. Speed controller. That's what I thought. Now that's better. We get a much better finish like that. We're not in any hurry. We don't need to be. Where was it set? Well, I don't know what speed that is, but that's way, way, way too fast for a machine of this size. And we don't need any of that. So we're going to start all the way back when it's on its slowest setting. And we can move forwards from there. We're going to run numerous test pieces while we're setting up. Right, that's much better. Now we need to clean all these out before we're finished. Clean that residue off of this feed roller. Now this is the last feed roller before it goes into the top cutter. On the reverse side of that, and you can just see it through underneath. There's another. Where are we? There. Let's see if we can get you in there. Like that. You see that? That's a finished roller. That's not worn. That's good. That's a good thing. This is quite clearly worn. And how this would happen, that's when you're putting something through way too thick for this cutter and it's just mullering it, which means you're taking too much off for a small machine. On a larger machine, on the machines I used to have, you could get away with taking, have I got my light on? You could get away with taking 15, 20 mil off of a top head, as with side heads and bottom heads. But a machine this size, you don't want to be taking any more than 2 mil, 3 mil off. I don't care what it recommends. The bearings and everything else in this machine ain't up to it. So we're going to clean these rollers up. And then we can put this inspection hatch back on and we're going to start setting the machine up. And I'm going to go through that with you step by step. So we're going to reinstall the old blades that come out of here with the correct spars, and much to my better judgment we're going to reinstall the non-correct spars with the blades that we've sharpened back into the bottom cutter, and then we're going to set the bottom cutter, then we can set the fences, and then we can start looking at what we're doing left and right. Good, I'm happy with that. Right, let's put it back together. Right, I've raised up the bed to about 35 mil, so it's easier to work on. And then, against my better judgment, I've got to put the wrong Gibbs blade holders back into this bottom block with the new sharpened blade. Now, on a big machine, your bed pre-block raises and lowers so that you can get the depth of the cut onto the first head. This doesn't. So I'm using this other cutter as my flat edge so that I can set the height of this first blade. And then I'm thinking, well, what a ridiculous carry on, because you can't set it to 0 so that it doesn't do anything, because it won't do anything. So you then got to measure this end here when you lift the blade up to determine the height. So if you want to set it at 1 millimetre, so it takes off 1 millimetre as it goes across, then you would lift the blade up till that becomes 1 millimetre, tighten this end, and then repeat the process the other end, and then check that it's level all the way through. I'm still thinking this isn't right, and then it's occurred to me why this plate has 2 plates underneath it, because they're lead-in shims. So what you do is you set the blade to 0 here, your cutting height to 0, so that it won't take anything off or just touch it if you don't want it to. Then you set your depth by taking off this top plate and removing the 2 millimetre shims underneath. So if you set your bottom cut to 0.5 of a millimetre or 1 millimetre, and then you remove the lower 2 shims, you can actually achieve a cut of 5 millimetres on the depth on the first head, if that makes any sense. I can't think of a better way of explaining it. I have to set the bottom cutters at a level to determine what it takes off. And whilst it has adjustment screws, it doesn't on this one, because these are the wrong ones. Right, we've determined that. The right ones are in this head, the aluminium ones. The ones that are on order, right, the owner has not sent me. Albeit he said he's got them, he hasn't sent me. Well, I haven't got time to wait. I'm going to have to set it back up with the old blocks. But even with the new blocks, you've still got to determine at what height you set this. Well, no, because you can set it at 0 if you want, which means it doesn't take anything off. And then on this lower plate here, you can take this top plate off and remove the shims to give you a depth of cut. And you've got 3 potential shims in there. That means this leading deck here is too high. We've got to work out how to drop that. So I'm going to set the bottom cuts at 0, which means if you put a piece of wood across there, it's going to cut nothing off. Right. And then I'm going to remove the shims to give me the height cut that I want. That's how it's supposed to work. Right, okay, that's what we're doing then. We'll put these blades in and we'll set them at 0. And then we can adjust the height by removing shims from underneath here, which is the lead-in plate. I don't know if there's any machine setters or anybody's remotely interested watching this. So, when you haven't got adjusting screws on a blade, one way of getting the height set right in the block is to use a magnetic flat bar. I don't have one of those. So, is there something I can put underneath the blade inside this slot that will compress? Yeah, there is. So it's better if it's wet. As a small boy, I used to take apart a big pen in the days when you could take apart and fire this stuff at my classmates. And there's another story, but I saw this stuff here. I don't use this stuff here. I saw people fighting over this in shops and people going mad for toilet roll. They obviously don't know about the seashells. Right, so we chew some of this up and we'll put it in that slot, just a small amount, and it will compress and it'll allow me to put it down. When you're handling these blades, you remember what a really good job you did when you were sharpening them. And how one slip is going to leave you with a very, very nasty cut. Oh. When that blade comes around, it's going to lift the flat bar up. There you go. So that blade is at the moment at a height of 2.5, 3 millimeters, and we want that just touching. I'm trying to show you how we're going to do that. I think I may have put a bit too much tissue in there. It's not pushing down as easily as I would like. We could use a set of feeler gauges. Okay, we're good and even across there. Let's tighten this one. All right. So this bottom cutter's now set. I've got both new blades in there. Firstly, we're going to do a test with the top shut. Just make sure I've got the blades in there right. And then we're going to test and make sure I've got my zero cut 0.5 of a millimetre left to right. Yeah, let's do that. I'll put the top down first. Now we're going to test it. Now I need a set of gauges. There we go. Right, so we're starting off with 16 millimetres. So we want 15.5. Okay, 15.7. Now we need to make sure that that measurement is exactly right, left to right, to make sure our blades are level. Okay, that's the first cutter block set. So we set that at 0, we call that 0, 0.5 of a millimetre. It's actually 0.4 of a millimetre, even better. So anything goes through there on the bottom head, if you've got to have it running, take off 0.4 of a millimetre. Now we've got 2 millimetre sheets. That means we can go down to a total of 6 millimetres if we take all sheets off, but if we take off the 2 shims, we can achieve our perfect 5 millimetres. Off the bottom. Great. Okay, top cutter. So that was a difficult one because that's using the not correct blades without the adjusting screws, which should be in there. This one, however, we've got not only the aluminium gib, but we've also got somewhere the adjusting screws. So we'll get that together. I'll show you how that works. All right, we've got our 4 adjusting screws, 2 per blade. I don't need this bar at the moment. We've got our new exceedingly sharp blades. Now this roller, this cutter, goes in the opposite direction. So we have to set the blade in the opposite direction. And I haven't actually done this before, so I don't know how fiddly it is to get the adjusting screws into the slot in the blade and into the hole at the same time. But we're about to find out. Right. That's the correct angle of the dangle. That one goes in like that. if I'd have done this side first, I'd have understand the... Right, so this blade, we don't need to do the tissue trick with this, because you can see we can put the blade in and out as we like on this one. Who knows what he's barking about? Hey! What? Yeah, I'm talking to them. Yeah. You've always got something to say, haven't you? I wonder where you get that from. Hey? Well, look at it, son. Here. There. Yeah. Now you can wag your tail. If you're looking for your ball, it's over there, look. Sad, isn't it? It just holds it gently enough and firmly enough in place so that I can demonstrate to you how the other block should work with the adjusting screws. Bits of tissue, it works, but it's not good. Okay, so now, if I get you in the right position, you should be able to see I can make the cutter, the blade, shorter or longer by winding this adjusting screw in and out. That allows me to set it accurately, far more accurately. Right, I'll get the other one in and then we'll set that up. That looks nice, doesn't it? With that nice edge on it. Sharp, sharp. I wasn't expecting to find this. This is a cutter setting block. And this is how you set the height in the cutters. So the idea is that this, you see that's rocking? So what we do, firstly we can set, can we set you up in there? Yeah, we can. Okay, so wind the blade down. Behind the chip breaker, both ends. There we go. Now, hopefully, this block setter slides easily. It's missing the blade. Then what we do is we adjust the blade up. Oh, already it's there. Until we can just feel it. And just feel it with the lightest of touches. In fact, I'd say that was probably too much. We'll go back down. There. Just put a couple of turns on that one. Hold that there. Yeah, try not to do that. Put you there. And repeat the process at this end. Undoing the adjusting screw, which lifts the cutter up. There. Check the middle. Perfect. How lucky is that? That's still with the machine. And then you tighten up from the outer edges, working in. Okay, before we go testing heights and stuff, I've reset this bottom block using the cutter setter, which I didn't know existed when we did this. Okay, so now that's set according to this, as this one is set. But I want to test the overhaul height before we go any further. And then what happened was, this bit of wood here, test piece of wood, 85mm. I set this to 85mm, and this wouldn't physically go underneath here without really jamming it under. Right, that's not good. So then I was looking at the adjustment of all of these rollers, these lift to allow the bits of wood to go through. So they move up, and they're on. We need the light on with everything. So they're on springs and tensioners. When the bit of wood, anyway, they're so hard, they're jamming under. So then you look at the rubber roller, and you see the length of adjustment on there compared to these others. So they're all been tightened up a lot. Too much. They're too tight. And these are sharp, of course. So if these are under too much pressure, they'll put marks into the timber. And if you're only taking 2 or 3 mil off with the top head, you're going to have marks left. Now, I suspect these were tightened up because the bed was rusty and no good. And it needed more pressure to pull the wood through. So what we're going to do is we're going to relieve the pressure on these by undoing these nuts. Because we can always do them up, but we don't want to start with everything too tight. So we want to start with everything quite flexible and slowly when we're setting up the machine. So I'm going to loosen all these off and then we'll try again. Right. Okay, so it's taken a few days to do this, and you don't know this, but it's now Sunday morning, and it's 10 o'clock. I got up at 4:30, had my first cup of coffee at 4:45, took the dog out, started this 5 o'clock this morning, Sunday morning, 5 o'clock. So I didn't bother filming all the setup because it's probably a little bit boring, to be honest, and unless you specifically wanted to know something about this specific machine, it's kind of monotonous. But so we done all the repairs yesterday. So I've put the extra set of cutters. This is we're on setup now. So as well as putting in the long knives, I've put in the back-in relief cutters into the lower block, and then in the upper block I've put in the 2 extra blocks as well as the normal flat cutters. Right, this is going to give me a profile, and then I've put the grooving cutter in this side and the tongue cutter in this side, and I've squared the fences and I've moved this fence over, and as dry as I can, I've set it up where I need to do a test run. So that's where I'm at, and I've covered all the beds in silicone, and I've connected up all the extraction. And then because I used the mobile extraction extension to run power to the machine, I couldn't run the mobile extension. Then I remembered I had another extension, these are 3-phase extensions, on the big saw out in the yard. So I've just gone and got that, and I'm piped. The only other thing I'd like to have done is cleaned or changed the perspex window. I haven't done that, but I have got some board pieces ready to go. So I think I'm ready for my first test run through. And always a bit of an issue, because what you don't want to do is smash any cutters. Now on these, like what I call zero cutters, pre-made laser cut cutters, it's not like the old cutters where you'd spend 6 hours making a set of cutters and then destroy them on the first run through because you've been a pleb. And I'm hoping at my age that's long since in the past. But I have done it. I have done it, yeah. In fact, there's a story about that. I was stood behind a 7-head moulding planer, half the size of this building. And I'd spent, 2 days making all the cutters for the logs. This was in the day when we used to build log cabins. And I'd set it all up, and I'm behind the machine where all the workings are. And this was in the new factory that I just built, which was made of composite panels, which is steel, insulated material, and then steel. Anyway, so the first log is running through, and it had gone through for a while, and it was making a grinding noise, and I'm making minor adjustments to all the chains and everything behind, and I stand up, and there's a clatter. And I know it's a cutter, and I've reached across, hit the emergency stop button, and the machine shut down. But I'm standing there, and I'm all too well aware that on the machine in front of me, there's a light shining that I'd never seen before. In my youth, I'm like, what's that? That's kind of odd. Never really thought much about it. Well, where's that come from? Waved my arm around, and it was flashing. Turned round, and just above my head, it's where the cutter had broke, and it had exited the machine. It exited the machine out the back because all the shields were on the front, and it'd gone past my head and gone through these 2 sheets of composite panel. So after that, when I did a test run on a new set of cutters, firstly, I didn't make the mistake of making the cutters, winding them in too far. But secondly, I used to do the first 15 minutes test run, other than shutting the machine down and adjusting, from outside the moulding room, which was a room built of, it was only sterling board. It wouldn't have stopped the cutters anyway, having seen what it's just done, but it would have given you a bit of protection. But anyway, this is 0 tolerance. We ain't got to worry about that. Anyway, yeah, I think we're ready for a test. Yeah, I think that's what we should do. We should test it. It's quite a rigmarole. We've got to go all the way around the building, turn on all the different extraction units. I'm not quite sure on the whole height thing, and may actually want to just not let that drop on the floor. May just want to cut this in half again. This one I've got 3 pieces. This one it's a bit short really. Anyway, I've got 3 pieces there to test. I'm going to turn this camera around. 3 pieces there to test. The other thing that I discovered I don't like about this is you can't turn off the individual motors. You can only turn them on. So what you'd like to do is start up all the cutters, and then slow feed through the bit of wood, checking as you go. I wonder if on is on and off. That's an interesting thought. Let's just try that. No, you can't set the feed rollers. That's interesting. Let's go under. No. Okay, something's not right. Emergency stop button's not out. Is that it? Yep, that's it. Right, feed rollers. Can you turn them off again? No. So, that means if you're setting this up and a bit of wood is not, something happens inside, you've got to hit the stop button, which also stops the cutters on that bit of wood as well. I've done enough prep and measuring and remeasuring, and so come off of there. Handle on there, nothing else loose. Put that pipe on over there, switch this one on first. There's going to be a lot of noise. Right, well that's close. That is close. That gives me a really good starting point. That gives me a good starting point. So, this is wrong. This wants to be at the edge here. This wants to be further over, so I've got more of a flat there. And that's not really in the middle, but I'm kind of restricted on where I can put that, and I can show you why. Also, it's missed this edge, this top edge. So, I may want to take a little bit more. It's caught the bottom edge nicely, which is what I wanted. Okay, so to make a bit more sense of this, now in this profile on these cutters, so this cutter wants to go that way, and there's two of these cutters, there's one on the other side. The distance of this cutter wants to move across a bit more to give me a bit more of a flat. Now, as for moving these across, right, these relief bits, I'm not sure if I can do that, and I'll show you why. Because they have to go down between these. So if I want to move it, I have to move it all the way across, and then it'll be too far the other way. So there's nothing I can do about the relief on the back. The relief on the back has to be what it is. Right, some minor adjustments made. So in addition to the top moulding not being exactly where I want it, so what I've done is I've moved this cutter over to the edge, but I've moved this infield a bit. And then I did the cut in half to make sure it fits together properly. And it doesn't. It's close, but it's not quite there. So I've also raised the lead cutter as well. So we're going to run it again and see where we are on the second test run. Good enough? Right. So it is now 10 to 11. Say I started at 5. Yeah, say I started at 5. 6 hours. 6 hours from where I left off yesterday to getting the rest of the cutters in, to getting everything hooked up to a successful test. Say from full breakdown to your first setup. I mean, I should be able to change it quite quickly now, but there's 8 hours. That's quite quick. It's because it's quite small and we're using zero tolerance cutters. Yeah, but from a full breakdown, 8 to 10 hours, you'd be doing well to get this back together. So, yeah, I think that's not bad. I think 6 hours yesterday, 2 hours yesterday. I don't know, I've been working on this. I don't know what this is adding it now so far. 40, 50 hours since it arrived. 40 or 50 hours. That includes the tubing. I'm not particularly happy with this. I can manage. Even with that trip hazard there, I can manage. It's not ideal, but it will get an awful lot of that tongue and groove done. And this is only one mould. The mould with the soft edges here, I gave Sarah an opportunity to choose what style of tongue and groove that she wants in the office that I've got to build for her, which is what this is for. I'm basically partitioning off another room and building an office, and she wanted the rounds both sides, and that is the rounds both sides. So I'll mark this up now and put probably this longer sample here on the wall, marking up what it is, where it goes, and I should be able to set up to that identically again. So that's it for now. I'm off to have a cup of coffee. Setup's done, it's ready to run. The only shame of it all is I should be able to wheel the first pack straight in, which is that pack there. But as you can see, right outside the door is my van, and as you can probably see, it's right up in the air because I've now got to get into that so that I can get that fixed. It needs front to rear brake lines. Anyway, it is a few things, all of which are quite easy to do, so that Sarah can take it for its re-inspection. Otherwise, it's going to get taken off the road. We can't have that. Right, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.